to the Armchair Chief. My name is Jordan. I appreciate you watching on YouTube, or if you're listening on any of the podcasts, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Let's go ahead and get started. We had a very eventful week last week with some penalties levied out, as well as we had a full load on Saturday and Sunday of racing. We had a doubleheader Saturday. Those two series, the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series, both were supposed to qualify on Friday, but they did not get a chance due to rain. So we're going to go ahead and get started on the Craftsman Truck Series. Everything was set on a metric. And starting the race, we had Zane Smith, Ty Majeski, Ben Rhodes were your top three. Christian Eckes was fourth. And this race ended up setting some records with some cautions. 11 cautions, I believe, for 58 laps. A lot of these guys were running really well. Top line ran a lot, and that was kind of a going theme throughout the whole race. The Xfinity race was similar, as well as the Cup Series. So Atlanta, if you're not familiar with it, we'll kind of touch on that briefly as we're talking about the trucks. It's a mile and a half that runs as a super speedway. If you're not familiar, the other super speedways, or we'll call that one a super speedway as well, but the super speedways are Daytona and Talladega. We got a 2.5 and a 2.66 mile race. They get up to close to 200 miles an hour. So at Atlanta, you're running about 187, 22 degrees, banking on the side. It's hit or miss on how people like it. We'll discuss that a little bit later when we discuss the Cup Series. They reconfigured the pit road entry to this whole track. It is crazy. It's wild. It's hate it or love it, in my opinion. So going forward, Eckes ran up front. He kind of got towards the front of the race. He ran the first stage, did really well, kind of got shuffled in the back and had to fight himself way back up. Nick Sanchez did really well. Raja Kruth was running well, and then he got caught up in some stuff and ended up finishing later. I say did well. He was running top 10-ish, I believe, for a while. I think he got up into the top 10, top 15. So he surprised a lot of people. Those two guys are coming out of ARCA running as rookies. So it was fun to watch. It was enjoyable. The cautions, I mean, hey, it's trucks. You're going to have cautions because you got the rookies running. You got a lot of other people running that are as experienced as a Matt Crafton and a Ben Rhodes, somebody like that. So you're going to find this. It kind of stunk for Corey Heim. He was running up front for a while. He was actually behind Sanchez on a restart. Sanchez just lost power. He doesn't know what happened, anything like that. Corey Heim just ran in the back of him and spun out. So that was one of your cautions. It was a good fight, I thought, on the restart for the overtime. Sanchez was leading. Eckes came up and just got next to him and able to go by him. And, man, that made for an eventful run. It was great. Moving on to Xfinity. Again, they started on the metric. It was some good racing. They had a ton of cautions. I was thinking when I saw the Fox has a new line that shows you how many green flag laps and so on within these stages, and just seeing all the yellow, it was like somebody just went crazy with a highlighter and just took it and ran it all over. I mean, it was nuts. This had a lot of caution. It took a lot of time. The winner out of this race, in my opinion, who was not the actual winner of this race, and people will differ on this, was Josh Williams. We'll go on to that because we'll go on that a little bit later because there's some interesting stuff. I got a page from the rule book, which nobody really has. It looks like from Bob Pockrass on his Twitter. But Kligerman ran a very strong race. Parker Kligerman was up there running. He would get shuffled back and come back up. Again, this is one of those races where the top line was very dominant throughout the race until the end of the race, and then the low line just came in and it a lot better than it did throughout the rest of the race. So it was wreck crazy, just various different things going on. Yeah, it was a nuts race. A lot of wrecks. Maybe it was due to the cold, and I mean we're talking cold Sunday at like 3-ish, because this was an Eastern race, they were looking at like 45, I think it was, 47 degrees at race time. So this is cold temperatures for Atlanta. We're talking about the South. So, and we're talking end of March. So they're not used to all this, but we had a lot of bumping and banging. Ryan Truex ran really well. This is one of the races that he ran again for Joe Gibbs Racing. He did really well. I mean, this kid he's a grown man. I'd like to see him have a full-time ride again, especially with some good equipment. I mean, he's running this race and last race. He ran in top 5 for Joe Gibbs Racing. So I think if he has the equipment under him, he can run really well. And I said that last week too. So the big thing that kind of caused everything that I was talking about was Josh Williams, as I call him the, quote, winner of the race, because of all of the information, all the screen time he got. The Twitter blew up with him. I mean, it was nuts. So Josh Williams got caught up in one of these wrecks, and he put Bear Bond on. And as he explained, it's cold out there. Bear Bond needs warmth to stick. Well, Bear Bond flew off as he got back on the track. NASCAR ended up black flagging him, told him to park. He was ticked off about it. A lot of people were kind of like, what in the world's going on? This shouldn't be happening. It's, Bear Bond flew off. Why are you parking him? This is silly. He didn't like it either. So he went up and he parked his car right at the start-finish line, got out, and walked. Needless to say, this ticked off NASCAR, and he got called out to the hauler immediately. He had to sit there the whole entire race, and then his car was confiscated. They couldn't get it back. He got free. And as Bob Proctor put it out there, this is the rule that kind of kicked in with Josh Williams, and this is why we say, and a lot of other people were saying, they went a little overboard on it. So it says, and I quote, "At the discretion of the series managing director, if a damaged vehicle elects to not enter pit road on the first opportunity, or if a damaged vehicle exits pit road before significant repairs have been made and thereafter causes or extends a caution, leaking fluid, debris, etc., then said vehicle may incur a lap or lapse or time penalty, or may not be permitted to return to the race." So you had two other options that they could have done. Park them for 2 laps like they did Almirola last week. Give them a time penalty. Something. Not park them. In my opinion, that was stupid on NASCAR's part. I understand why they were doing it, but you also got to think about your atmosphere and what's going on with it being cold, things not being stick. I mean, he got up there and then it flew off, and they're like, we tried to put it on, we hoping it was stick, Anyway, so besides Josh Williams now, his mullet, he's got this thing where he parked at start-finish line. You got everybody going at it. He came out and said, he's like, what are they going to do, fine me? I can't pay the fine. Denny Hamlin came out on Twitter and said, hey, I'll pay it. You have a whole bunch of other people. He's supposed to be on Door Bumper Clear this week, so after you get done listening to this podcast, go listen to that if you haven't. You can get kind of more of his perspective. It was interesting. It brought some more information to this race, more information, more entertainment, I would say, for the fans. As much as NASCAR hated what he did, I think it was great. As his kind of fight back without cussing, he didn't stick any middle fingers up, none of that kind of stuff. He just parked his car. And he could have pulled a Kyle Busch, as I heard somebody was telling me. It's like, well, I didn't want to drive any further because you're parking me. I didn't want to damage or cause any more debris to fly out. I mean, he could have gone with that route like Kyle Busch did in the past. Allgaier got into a wreck. In his aftercare interview, he flat out said, I hate this track. And I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, it's not fun anymore. It's not fun to race this track. So there's, as I was talking about earlier, it's love-hate relationship with this track. I think it's kind of like, but I think it's also part of these cars. These cars are tough to get through with some of the stuff, and we'll see what happens. But going forward, Atlanta's got a lot of opportunity. We'll see what happens. So towards the end of the race, Kligerman was running. Austin Hill was up in the lead. Kligerman was running up there. He looked like he had a really good run. He was right behind him. Alfredo was running really well. But towards the last part of the wreck, we had Kligerman was fighting for that lead. Daniel Hemrick came up. Hemrick bumped him and then just kind of like spun him. They threw the caution. They let it keep going because it was right towards the start-finish line. And, man, I hate it for Kligerman because he was doing so well. I mean, he finished with a fourth backwards because he spun around. But Hemrick just kind of like plowed through him. We talk about on this podcast, Keselowski has the name for the plow. And there's so many other people that if you get in their way, they're going to just mow through you. Denny Hamlin's one of these guys. Comes to my mind. Joey Logano. So Hemrick just kind of moved. Instead of going down, he went up, and the car went up, and he just hit it more and spun him because he got Kligerman loose. Kligerman started going up the track. Hemrick started going up the track and then clipped him some more and spun him around. So that kind of that stunk for Kligerman. Ryan Truex, as I was talking about, he got a good end to this race. He finished actually third. Hemrick got second. So our winner was Austin Hill. He is a 3-time winner in the series here. I think Kyle Busch is the only one that's got the other win. I could be wrong. I am wrong. But he's the 3-time winner. And, congratulations to Austin Hill. This is kind of his hometown track. It led to some fun times, interesting, frustrating, hands in the air type finish to the track. Like, hey, what in the world's going on? This is crazy. It was nuts. So, kind of going into the standings on the Xfinity race, we have Austin Hill, John Hunter Nemechek. He's the other guy that won that I just forgot about. So John Hunter, Austin Hill, as well as Kyle Busch. Those are your 3 winners so far this year. And Sammy Smith. Good night. I'm just off of it right now. Anyway, Austin Hill, John Hunter, and Sammy Smith are locked in. And if we just go with the playoff points, we're looking at Allgaier, Hurst, Chandler Smith, Sam Mayer, Custer, Josh Berry, Daniel Hemrick, Kligerman, and Sheldon Creed. Creed had a good run, too, towards the beginning. He was up there competing pretty good, too. So, yeah, that's your projected playoff right now. We'll see what happens going forward. We got Circuit of the Americas this week. It's another doubleheader with the Craftsman trucks. You're going to have a lot of big-name people running these races. Ross Chastain, Kyle Busch running in the trucks. Ty Gibbs is running in the 19. So it's going to be fun. I like this road course. This is one of these places I'd love to go out to and see. Unfortunately, I haven't been there. So with that being said, let's go ahead and move over into the Cup Series. They did qualify for pole, as it was done on Saturday. Ford's just dominated qualifying. I mean, you're talking Ford's got the top 6, if I remember correctly. I'm sorry, top 8. You had a lot of... So you pretty much had top 3 were Penske cars. You had Logano, you had Cindric, and Blaney. And then you had your RFK, Keselowski was there, Almirola, Harvick, Buescher, Briscoe. That's your top 8. Larson was the first Chevrolet. And then Christopher Bell was rounded up top 10 as a Toyota. This race was... It had its ups and downs. It was frustrating seeing some of these guys run around. They couldn't get moving. Kyle Busch got caught up in something. Bubba Wallace was our first spinner of the race. Caution. Reddick did really well. They had reported that he wasn't feeling well and he was kind of sick. So he ended up running it, even though he had John Hunter Nemechek sit there as a backup that he could just pull in and get done. As I was mentioning before, the reconfigured the pit road entry to this track. This is where it played a role in it because there wasn't as many cautions in this race, so you had the pit under green flag. So to kind of give you an idea, they pretty much doubled pit road. Pit road started before turn 3. So right at turn 3 was the commitment line. And you got to run 45 miles an hour around turn 3, turn 4, into pit road. It was, as I said, pretty much doubled. And you got cars going 187 mile an hour on the track. A lot of people got 2 laps down. Luckily, there wasn't a caution between pits, because, man, that would have put a lot of people behind the 8 ball. So, luckily that didn't happen, but I think a lot of people, I don't want to speak for a lot of people, but I know for me, I think it's kind of silly. I know they did this for a safety reason, but why not have the guys get down on the apron, run speed, and then make that the commitment line, run close to track speed on the apron, and then start slowing down. I think that would be better. It's a little bit safer than having everybody just come off turn 4 into the commitment line. So Christopher Bell, he qualified 10th, but he had to start at the end of the back of the track, back of the people. But he ended up fighting himself back up. He had a really strong race. Keselowski was up there running. Logano, he pretty much stayed up there most time, fighting back and forth. Harvick got into a wreck. A lot of people have been blaming Ross Chastain for that. When you go back and look at the replay of it, it was just air loss off Chastain's car. Chastain didn't bump him until Harvick got sideways, and it's like, what are you supposed to do? Lay in, hit the brakes, and then have everybody else pile up behind you? I think it was misrepresented and misworded because Ross Chastain has a reputation for being one of these guys that will just race you hard and like Dale Earnhardt you. So, yeah, that kind of stunk. Harvick, I'll commend Harvick because he didn't even say it was Chastain's fault. He's like, man, I lost air and got loose. You go back and look at it, and these people, I'm not going to name out any names except for NASCAR.com actually called it out too. Chastain caused this wreck. He may have caused the wreck, but he didn't hit Harvick to cause the wreck. This was racing. This was air off the car, caused them to get loose. It happens. I think Ross got an unfair advantage there when it comes to all this. We'll see where it goes. Logano and Keselowski were running back and forth. The last half of this race, more than about 40 laps into this race, man, it stunk. It was boring. It was a snooze fest because you didn't have any movement. I mean, you'd have a couple move back and forth because you had 2 lanes, but it was boring. I think Kyle Busch came out and said, he's like, hey, we were trying to move. We got shuffled in the middle. We got put back. We came back up to close to where we were before we got shuffled back, but there was no movement. Nobody wanted to go out. Nobody was moving. It was kind of deadlocked towards the back. I like watching the back racing because sometimes it's more intriguing, especially on some of these races where you have people out like the 3 or 4 second lead, and the TV broadcast, again, I said this last week too, they go out and they have to show the leader and they have to show the big names, their sponsors. But it's boring to watch on TV. So with that being said, hey, it was rough. It was boring. I say rough. Sucks for Truex. I think he needs a change somewhere, and nobody's giving it to him. This is the third year that he's had issues with his crew chief ever since Cole Pearn left. This time engine mapping was wrong is what they were suspecting. I don't know what it was. He was burning a lot more fuel than anybody else, so he got shuffled back. Beginning of the race, he was out there running, and he was moving and passing people, and he probably could have made a run for the top 10. I know he's running up there at the end of stage 1 and stage 2, but this whole burning so much more fuel than everybody else, it kind of just caught him. I think he's due for something, but, if JGR can't find a change for him, if they can't find a crew chief, I think it might be a little bit of the crew chief, but at this point, it's like, maybe it's the whole team. I mean, his pit crew kind of hurt him a little bit in one of the races because they messed up. I mean, he lost a wheel, so he had that penalty. So, I mean, he's got a lot to overcome. And for him to come up, I think, let's see where he finished. He finished 19th. Barry had another really strong running. Ricky Stenhouse finished 17th, AJ Allmendinger 16th. So your top 5 were Logano, Keselowski. They were fighting back and forth. Logano just got out right in front of him. Keselowski couldn't capitalize. And then you had Bell. Corey LaJoie got a top 4. He finished 4th. Man, congratulations to Corey. That's a strong running for a team everybody discredits. Everybody discredits that guy. I hate that for him because I think he's a good driver. He just doesn't have the respect for running up there because he hasn't been up there, and it's mostly because of the equipment that he has. It's not his driving skill. I mean, as you can see here, he's up there running and ran clean. So, that you had that there, and then Tyler Reddick finished 5th. And man, if he was feeling sick, that's crazy that he was able to finish that race. So kudos to him as well. The 45 car team seems to be running really well. They've got everything running. So we'll see what goes on. We have Circuit of the Americas coming up. We have Kimi Räikkönen, Jenson Button. They're up there running the 91 as well as the 15, respectively. Next race in Austin. So just a kind of a reminder, guys, with this race, they changed rules, so we will have choose rule at the road courses, but they ended the stage cautions during the road course. So that'll be something interesting to watch. More green flag pit stops and able to do that kind of stuff. So moving on to the news. As I was telling you earlier, we had a lot of information in one of the posts that I put on YouTube, kind of like a end of week recap. Hendrick Motorsports got the book thrown at him, in my opinion, and rightfully so to an extent. The louvers that they put on the car were modified to fit the car. NASCAR caught it. NASCAR caught Justin Haley too on one of his louvers, and yeah, they ended up getting penalized. That they docked 100 points for each driver except for Chase Elliott, which we'll cover that a little bit later. And they suspended their crew chiefs. They did it a lot. And hey, they modified a single source part. People were like, hey, but it was a single source part. They still had to modify it to put it on the car. You got to think about it. Try to go to NASCAR and say, hey, you gave me a part that doesn't fit. It doesn't match the CAD designs that we had sent you. We got to get this fixed. They didn't do that. Chad Knaus came out and kind of said, he was disappointed in this, and it's a single source. It's not our fault. Bob Pockrass asked him, said, hey, you modified it to fit your car, right? Yeah, we had to modify it. I mean, that's evidence right there you got caught. Dale Jr., same thing. He kind of made excuses, in my opinion, for it. He's kind of hooked with HMS, with his Junior Motorsports and running Chevrolets. But that one, he kind of didn't see it either. He was questioning why Chase Elliott didn't get any driver points taken away. And it's like, Junior, he's not racing for 6 weeks. He's already penalized himself by breaking his leg. Why are you going to penalize him more? It's not going to... He's already behind the 8 ball on this whole thing. So that's what I thought about it. It's like, come on, think, guys. And yeah, they have more experience than me. They've been in a car. They know what the heck's going on with the cars. But when it comes to this, some of the stuff is just, in my opinion, out there saying, hey, this is what's going on. Look at it. Chase Elliott wasn't even running the cars when they got caught with the louvers at Phoenix. So, hey, I think it was rightfully so. The one that I don't like was the Eric Almirola penalty. Oh, and by the way, with HMS penalties, they are going to be appealing those. We'll see what happens with that. I think NASCAR is showing that they don't have favoritism with these guys. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But, Eric Almirola was the one that I didn't like the penalty because they parked him for 2 laps. The race, the wheel broke. It's not like the wheel fell off and rolled away. It broke off and rolled. And they penalized him for a loose wheel. That's kind of petty in my mind. That one was silly. Denny Hamlin was the other penalty that got caught. That made the big part of the news because he came out and flat out said, I'm taking Ross with me at the end of the race. He manipulated the race. And he admitted it. And he got fined. And he's calling and appealing. Denny, you manipulated the race. Ross could have finished at a higher spot. You broke a rule. Come on, man. I don't think he's going to win his appeal either. He got fined some points, and I can't remember how much money he got fined either. Hendrick Motorsports got fined $400,000, $100,000 per car, to give you an idea on that. So that's the big thing with that. I like what Kyle Busch said about that. They asked them in the interviews before the Atlanta race, so what do you think of Denny's penalty? Then he's like, should have kept his mouth shut. Don't talk about that stuff. Keselowski came out when they were asking him about the whole Hendrick Motorsports thing, and with Justin Haley as well. It's like, what do you think about this as you're an owner, driver owner? He's like, hey, he looked at Tony Stewart, looked at Clint Boyer. You guys have been smacked, and you learned. I've been smacked and learned. Sometimes getting smacked, we learn. So I see that as a big, hey, you kind of need to get smacked around. And if you look at a lot of people, I don't know about the fan bases. I see it, and probably some of the older fans, and maybe some of these fans of like Stuart Haas and so on. HMS gets a lot of favoritism, in my opinion. Look at Garage 56 they're running, so on. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe this is NASCAR showing, hey, we don't have favoritism after people are coming out. They have a lot of like questionable cautions. William Byron's first win, questionable caution. So we'll see what happens with this going forward. We'll see what happens with the appeals coming forward. The last one that didn't get really shared, I believe, was a Xfinity crew member. He sold his hot pass to somebody, and it specifically says NASCAR, you cannot do that. NASCAR is the only one that can do that. So he pretty much got suspended from tracks indefinitely. That one was kind of thrown under the radar because it's not known. It's not big names. So that was one of the other penalties that happened. So anyway, moving forward, we got Circuit of the Americas. As I mentioned, Kimi Räikkönen, Jenson Button are going to be running. Jimmy Johnson comes back with Legacy in the 84. And it should be fun. We do have a doubleheader coming up on this race as well. Truck Series as well as the Xfinity Series are going to be running on Saturday. We have those races. And then we have the Cup Series running at 3:30. Be sure to check out on YouTube. I'll try to do an update when we get more details on when qualifying is and so on. And, yeah, we'll go from there. Hopefully this will be a fun race. It's been hit or miss with these cars. They tried to make them better in racing, and some, it's hit or miss, I think, with these. We'll see what happens. First Circuit of the America race was horrendous. Mostly it wasn't even the car's fault. It was just the rain. It was very dangerous conditions. And then moving forward, we'll see what happens. I want to see who comes out. I'm curious to see how Kimi Räikkönen and Jenson Button are going to be doing. Kimi's in a lot better equipment than Jenson, but, we'll see what happens. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you guys watching. Thanks again. Be sure to like, follow, and share. Comment if you have anything you want to talk about, anything you want me to bring up, and we'll try to bring it up. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good week.